Hi, I'm Eva Jones Watley,
How you spell Joe?
Joe. I got my name, my middle name from my granddaddy, my mom's dad, and my first name came from my mom's first cousin, Eva Joyce Baker. My date of birth is January the 14th, 1957. And I'm going to clear up all the lies that's been told. No, I'm just joking. There were a lot of stories that were told that were not completed. And I just want to, comment on some of those. I am a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. Currently, I'm working in home care, but I've worked in the hospitals, but I've done home care for a long time, which has been very beneficial for me. I am the second child of Herbert Jones Jr. and Annie Jo Hyde Jones. And
Where were you born?
I was born in Teague, Texas, and at home. My dad tells me that I was delivered by a midwife. So,
That explains it.
one of the things I can tell you about when they were talking about Daddy saying rise and shine, well, this is another story that the guys probably don't know that we did. But Shonda was alive then, but anyway, she was born then. She was born then. Well, when Daddy would get up on Sunday mornings and tell everyone to get up and get ready for church, well, my daddy always had respect for his girls, so he would never come into our room. Mom would come into our room, but after Mom passed away, we kind of took advantage of it. Daddy would come to the door, knock on the door real hard and say, y'all get up in there. And we'd get up, turn the light on, and get back in the bed. And we would take up, while the boys were up and Daddy was in there getting them dressed and telling them, you need to put this on, you need to put that on. We were just sitting there listening to them sleeping, trying to sleep. And then right when he said, okay, I'm leaving in whatever minutes, we would jump up, throw our clothes on real good, quick, because we took our baths the night before. So we'd get up and throw our clothes on and everything, and we'd be the last ones coming out the house. And the boys would be sitting in the car so mad at us because Daddy waited on us.
And we had no shoestrings on. Yeah.
And when we would get to the car, like they said, Daddy was always on time. We would get to church and nobody would be at church Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. But we were on time. And we said, Daddy, why? Somebody, I think it probably was Earl, because, we weren't brave enough to ask Daddy a question. And he said, Daddy, why we get to church, every week on time? And nobody's here. And not only are they not there, we had to sit 30 minutes or so before anyone else would get there. But he said, no. He said, church, Sunday school is supposed to start at this time, and this is the time. We would get there sometime 2 minutes before, but never after that time. That was just, and when they were talking about the born story with my grandmother, for years, we didn't understand till later why her house sat on top of the hill and ours was at the bottom. It probably was, if you would measure it, it probably was about 2 blocks from each other, maybe 3. And our house was like, I always said, a little house on the prairie, It was a white house. And we had a barn over there, and it was China berries out in the front. And my grandmother lived at the top of the hill. Well, Mom always had a child, a baby, a year or 2. So the youngest one, when it was time for her to take a nap, she took a nap too. So she would keep the younger ones. So I think you had to be either at least 4 or 5 before you could go outside without Mom being out there watching you. And then whoever was younger, in that young age, the older ones were responsible for watching them and making sure they didn't get into trouble or nothing. So my grandmother, she had her window with her TV in it, and also with her, where she quilted. And we couldn't understand why, But when we would go around to the other side of the house, then we would hear her come out, y'all need to come from under the other side of the house. We were like, how she know what we doing? How can she see us? For a long time, we didn't understand, but that was her and Mama's deal. She would babysit us from 3 blocks up the hill. And whatever we did or got into trouble, whatever we were doing out front, she would correct us. There were things that we would do, like there was so much sand in the front of our house. And the older ones, we took advantage of that. And we had the younger ones to cover us up. I mean, it was so much sand that you could cover yourself up all the way up to your neck. And the younger ones were like, well, who's gonna cover me up? And we were like, we don't know. So we would, after a while, they caught on to that and they stopped doing it. But we used to play in the sand. It was so much that we would do just as kids, just making up games. But one of the things that we were doing was the barn. Herbert and I would climb up the barn and jump off. Climb up the barn and jump off. Well, Grandmama said that she saw us trying to get James up there because James wanted to get up there too. And so she said she couldn't make us hear for some reason. And so the next thing we know, all she could think about was coming out of the house and walking down there. And we were trying to get James up there on our shoulder, and he kept slipping down. And next thing we know, this big old switch come behind us. And so we never got James on top of the barn because she just knew he was going to break his arm if he got up there.
Grandmama or mama?
Grandmama. Mama was in the house sleeping.
Oh, okay.
Mama's in the house. This is Grandmama coming from up her house, coming down the hill to us. And they talk about the snake story. With the snake story, what was happening was James, Tricia, and Earl had ran up the hill and they were playing. And Herbert and I were talking and we were behind them and we were walking. And there was a snake in the road. I didn't see him, but Herbert saw him. And Herbert said, "Even there's a snake." And so we backed up real slowly. And we were telling James and Tricia and Earl to go back up to Grandmama's. But what they did was they ran back down the hill and just went to the other side of the road and came all the way down. But we went and told Mom because whenever there was a snake, my mom would always tell us, let me know, because that snake wasn't going to make it to the next day because she would come and kill the snake with the hole and everything. But that was as far as the snake story was concerned. Now, one of the things I have to say about my mom was she's a very special person because even though there were 10 kids, she individualized each and every one of us. Mm-hmm. She never disciplinary one child the same way she would do the other. It's like she studied us to see who we were, what we were about. Because there were times I know I should have gotten a spanking and I didn't. But she studied me and she figured out what would be best for that child. She didn't want to just whip everybody. She figured you out. And she disciplinary you or corrected you or directed you according to who you were and your character and how you were. I can remember being in church and she would go with us and people were so cruel then. You know, she was having children, but at least she was married. But they would talk about her because she was having all these kids. But we were just like the kids of these days. We wanted to sit by ourselves and, we didn't want to sit with her. So she would tell us, okay, you go up there and sit, but no talking. We couldn't talk because we had my grandmama over here in the deaconess section that would go, and her, we knew it. And Daddy was over here and he would go, but Mama would come up behind you and we sat in benches, where you could slip your hand through. And it wasn't, and you slip your hand through. And Mama would be smiling and we would be twitching. She would tell us, I dare you to holler out. And we would be crying. She's like, I dare you to holler out. And you better be still. And so one day this lady asked her, said, Annie Jones, you be going up there and you be talking to those kids in their ear and they just be crying away. I said, but they don't know that she was pinching too. And another thing that Mama would do, having 10 kids and especially 7 boys who was always getting into stuff. I was like, they just love getting spankings. They were always getting into stuff. Well, my mom, after she was a 24/7, they call it a stay-at-home mom. We thought that was just something mamas were supposed to do. As a matter of fact, during that time, we felt sorry for the kids whose moms didn't stay at home with them. Because we were like, poor children, they had to stay by themselves, But Mama, she got tired of spanking. So she found another remedy. And I learned from that. That's probably why I didn't get very many spankings after that. She started making us kiss each other. And not just kiss each other, kiss in the mouth. And James, he always had the snottiest, nasty nose. And she would say, kiss him, kiss him. And I was like, Mama, get him wipe. I don't want to kiss him. Can he just wipe his nose? You would feel like you were getting a spanking. You'd be crying like you were getting a spanking.
Beat me.
I know it. And I would kiss him on the cheek. And she said, no, kiss him in the mouth. I said, well, can he wipe his nose first? And she said, no, kiss him, kiss him. And she said, that wasn't long enough because you go, he said, that wasn't long enough. So we would just cry. We were like, Mama, just spank us. We'd be begging for a whip. But that's what she did because she didn't like whipping us, but she knew that in order for us to grow up and be the kids that we needed to be, that she had to discipline us. And especially boys, she could tell them to do something, and then in 10 minutes, they doing the same thing over again. But one thing about it was, someone's already mentioned it, you couldn't play mama against daddy. As a matter of fact, you would hope that mama didn't tell daddy. Because if mama told daddy, oh wow, you were gonna get it when he got home. And he would tell you, y'all bet that's the last thing he would say when he leave for work in the morning. Y'all better do what y'all mama say. And it was so amazing because daddy could come home and mama would have spanked him all day long doing stuff. Daddy can give them like 3 or 4 licks and they're good for 2 weeks or more, you know? So I never understood that, you know. But those were things that I remember as far as my mom is concerned. And some of the things that also as a child, when James was talking about how mom talked about the special ed. Well, James was a daydreamer. And mama had, when they told him that they had put him in special ed, mama said, oh no, you haven't talked to me. You know, all I want you to do is give me 6 weeks. 6 weeks with him at home. And I used to feel so sorry for James because he would be up so late at night and mama said, oh no, you're not no special ed. She said, you got too much common sense. That's what she always told James that Earl makes the grade, but you are the smartest of the family because you got too much common sense. And that was something that I think that really, really helped James along, you know, his journey after that, because after 6 weeks, James' grades came up and they never went back down. And mama always instilled into the older ones, especially all of us, but the older ones especially remember that she said that when they came out, I forget what year it was, they came out with how you could get grants. And she was like, oh, wow. You know, like I said, she was an activist. She was up to par on everything that was going on as far as blacks were concerned and what they could achieve and what, you know, the things that were there for them. And she was pushing for it at the school. When the other parents were like scared to say anything, oh no, mama would stand up. And then they would benefit from it. Their kids would benefit from it. But she stood up for it. And my understanding that my granddad was a NAACP. And one of my uncles said my mom was fully granddaddy and fully big mama, which is Annie Franklin High. But one of the things mama told them, she said, my child is not going to be put in special ed. Ain't none of my children special ed kids. So she worked with James for 6 weeks. She said, give me 6 weeks. He brought all his grades up, and those teachers were amazed. They were just amazed. And so they knew that before they were going to do anything with Annie High Jones children, they better ask her first.
Tell us something about you. Tell us something about you.
Okay. I was a good child. You can't
Story about everybody else.
Yeah, tell us a story about you.
I'm still telling.
Your time is running out.
No, I'm clearing up everything. Okay.
Okay, well.
Now she starts.
No, she's
Okay.
oldest. We get to mess with her. We'll make you chit-chat. You protecting your sister. That's so
15 minutes.
special.
One of the things I want to say about my dad was that he was not a lazy man.
He ran out of tape.
Yeah, you got it. Barry died on that day.
Okay, my dad was not a lazy man. He worked at the brickyard, and I can remember there were days when it would rain. Well, we lived in the country where it was nothing but clay, roads, and you couldn't get your car, especially up that hill. He would try, and would fishy tail up that hill. My dad would walk to work, and he would walk back. Or if he got as far as my grandmother's house, he would park the car there and walk down the hill. So I thought that was very important for his boys, especially because he was not a lazy man, and he didn't want any of them to be lazy too. And I can remember Herbert and I, my oldest brother, we were young, but my dad loved to race. He had this 1957, I think it was a Chevy, and we were sitting in the back seat of his car. And this guy rolled up beside him and said, "Oh, what you gonna do with that 57?" He said, she said, "I want to show you what I'm gonna do with it." And so next thing you know, he would tell us, "Sit back in the seat." Now these were the days of no seat belts. But we were sitting in the back of that seat of the car, and Daddy was racing. When we got home, we go, "Mom, Daddy had already told us, don't tell her, don't tell Mama." And we got home, "Mom," I think it was.
He done it again.
I forget who it was.
He done it again because he put me out. He wouldn't let me ride.
And he raced.
you on
He
the
said,
side of the
"Mom."
road.
That's right.
On the side of the road, the brickyard.
Yep,
I
yep.
remember that now. You
Yep.
said it.
But we went home and we told Mom about it, and she was so mad. And she said, "Herbert, I told you about racing with those kids in the car."
So
But-
we said, "Okay, get out, James." Get out.
Okay.
And he raced anyway.
Let's circle back around to your sis.
Tell about
Okay.
about who your
15
job.
minutes.
Oh, I think I told about my jobs.
Okay.
Oh, one of the things what Mom was always trying to teach me, I was her scary child. And my brothers would go outside, pick up leaves and put it in their hand, come in and say, I got a spider here. I got something." And we would scream to the top of our
You.
Well, and Mama would tell them, "Stop doing that." And then she would tell me that, you need to stop being so scared. And I would just get overly excited about everything. So,
I remember this now.
well, one day I was trying to do what my mom said, try not to get overly excited and about everything. So Herbert, Mr. Independent, he was going to somebody was there at the house and Mama was talking to them. And he was going to put wood in our wood heater, stove, or whatever it was. And I said, "Herbert, you need to let Mama do that." He said, I can do this. And so he put it in there, and when he put it in there, the wood wouldn't burn. So he decided to pour gas.
Oh, no.
And when he poured the gas in there, he took the match, and he had wasted some gas on his hand.
Ouch.
So the fire was burning on his hand, and he was doing like this. So I'm trying to practice what my mom said. I said, "Mama, the house is on fire." Now, there was some gas wasted on the floor, so it was burning on the floor too. "Mama, the house is on fire." She was still talking to whoever she was. And finally I just said, "Mama, the house is on fire." And she ran back there and she was like, "Why were you talking so easy?" "Well, you told me not to scream and holler about everything, so I was trying to follow what you said too."
Be calm about it.
So anyway, my mom was always, like I said, always trying to teach us, lessons in life. And I remember when she told us about school, that she said that all of us were going to go. She wanted all of us to go to college, and we were like, "We're not smart enough. We can't go to college. They know more." And she said, "Oh no, you could not use the word can't." That was like a curse word in her house. You couldn't use that curse word. Daddy was like, "As long as you march across that stage, graduate, that's what I want you to do."
You always hard head more yards, man.
But Mama said, "Oh no, you're going to college, every last one of you." And the Lord blessed that even though my mom passed when I was 14, all of us have gone to college and all of us graduated except for the last 3. But they got enough credit hours that the Lord has blessed them with jobs that place them in positions, that of management and different things like that. So I thank my mom for that, because she saw the best in all of us, and she did not ever expect one to do just as the other one did. And going back to Earl and his singing, he won the grand prize.
Top hat.
And so guess who sung at my junior senior sports banquet?
They sure did.
My little brother.
They sure did.
He sung, and everybody was like, "Oh, he's good." Now at the time, I was proud.
First I said, oh no.
I was proud. I was proud of it, but I was also like, "This little old boy singing in my sports band."
I was dead home. It's time for you to go home. We at the prom.
I had so many gigs. They all kind of ran together.
He sang about 4 or 5 of them.
He sung at a bunch of functions. He sung one of ours too, the sports bank.
Did I really? I don't remember that.
Sports
so I had a
bank.
road show going. That's just something.
And I have to tell you I'm telling you guys about all of this because I, just want my mom and who she is. My mom, she was a peacemaker. She didn't like to have, people arguing or fussing. And so one day I was at school, it was about the 7th grade, and this neighbor of ours was talking about my mom. And my friend, I hear my brothers in the back, like brothers do, they're sighing and all. My brother, but my best friend came to me and she told me, she said such and such about you. And about your mom. So I went home and told my mom that what she said about her. And my mama said, okay. So next thing I know, she's walking out the back door. And I was like, what you gonna do, Mama? Don't tell her I told you. But anyway, she went out the back door into the neighbor's home. And she was there for a long time because I watched her out the window because I didn't want to get out of that window because I wanted to see what was going to happen. But when she came back, she was smiling and everything. So, but she was a peacemaker. She didn't believe in, and she was bold. If you said something about her, she was going to ask you about it. But she wasn't going to do it in a derogatory manner. She always appropriately did it whenever she was handling issues. And I think about in the cotton field, we were all had to pick cotton. But my mom was out there with us too. And what she would do is whoever the baby was there under the trailer. And she would just pick the cotton around the trailer. But all of us had to pick cotton, and we had to put James and Tricia in the front of our row so that we could come behind, and whatever they missed, Herbert and I would have to, pick up and clean it up behind. And my mom, I was this one who was always kind of challenging her, I guess you could say. And my mom was she could build things. She built our bed. The first before we even heard about king size beds, she built a king size beds for my sister, 3 of us, my sisters and I. But one day we were driving down the road, and there was this old chair on the side of the road. And she told Herbert and James, get out there and get that chair. And I was like, Mama, what you gonna do with that old nasty chair? It was nasty looking and all broken up. She said, I'm gonna fix it up. Oh, I don't want to sit in, and this is me talking, I don't want to sit in that nasty looking chair. She said, okay, when I finish this chair, you're not gonna sit in it. So she took that, she took the chair and she set the chair outside. She stripped it down, everything. She let it sit out there a day, and she went back and she sprayed it down with something. Next day she sprayed it down with something else. When my mom finished with that chair, it looked like it had come out of a furniture store. And she said, okay, what you think about my chair now that you can't sit in, But she was always, I was always challenging her, but she would listen to me. I was one of those kids where, I was like, Mom, why you do this? And Mom, why you doing that? But she would listen to me. And okay, they telling me I need to go on to something else. So.
There you go.
Let's go to Herbert.
Let's go to Herbert.
Okay.
There you go. Come back to you.
And
My name is Herbert Jones. Oh no. Herbert Sylvester
Thank you.
Jones III. I'm the oldest child of 10.
AKA Jack.
I was born in December the 13th, 1955. When I was born in Hereford, Texas.
Wow.
And I can remember my mom, I know I didn't know this myself, but my mom said when I was born, I think I was in, my uncle probably would know better than I do, But I think my mom and my dad moved back to Teague when I was like 1 year old. And my mom said when I moved back to Teague that I used to cry all the time at night because it was so hot. She carried me when it was cold. And so when I was born, I guess I wasn't used to the warm weather here in Teague, Texas. But I'm the oldest, and I went to school for the ministry, and I graduated with a BA in religion. And I did that after I got older. Now, they telling me these stories about my mom said we were all going to be going to school, but I never, some things I don't remember them saying to me, but I know that that was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to go to college, and I became a Seventh-day Adventist in 1978, and after I became Seventh-day Adventist, I was encouraged to go to college, and so I graduated there after 6 years. I got married when I was there, so I ended up doing 6 years of college before I got my BA in religion. And I want to tell something about my name, because when I first got my name, I was named, my daddy didn't give me the third. I heard this from someone else. At first, my name was just Herbert Sylvester, but Mama Lula said, name that boy Third. That boy's name gonna be Third. So they went back and got the birth certificate, and they redone it and put on there the Third. So
Daddy told that story.
Daddy told me that. I don't know who told me, but I know that was something that happened. Mama Lula wanted my name to be Third, so my name was Herbert Sylvester. And I heard my uncle call me, and most people call me Sylvester. My cousin Treva, Sylvester. Everybody used to call me Sylvester when I was a little boy. And there was something about that name too that happened to me as a kid, and so I want to remember that later. But so right now I have my own business. I have a lawn care service. I also went to school, air conditioning, refrigeration, and plumbing. I do all types of remodeling, fence. My brother, I called him the other day. He didn't give me no call back. I had a fence. I wanted him to help me get a bid on.
You don't call us.
And the thing I tried to figure out when we were kids, when I got older, I used to wonder why I do some of the things that I do. And I'm gonna tell some of those stories too, how I found out how we learned some of those things. But what I want to do is I want to do like what was said in the beginning, start with the top as far as I can remember back on both sides of the family. I want to start with my mother's side of the family, with my grandmother. I didn't really know her name until I heard them talking. I always called her grandmama.
Big Mama.
Big Mama, Big Mama. We all call her Big Mama, Big Mama. And I remember she looked just like an Indian. And I didn't realize that I had Indian blood in my, and till I remember one day she showed me a picture. Grandmama showed me a picture of her father.
Big Mama.
He was, Big Mama, they say Big Mama, but
Distinguish between
she,
the two.
Big Mama, yeah, when Big Mama on my mama's side of the family. She showed me a picture of her father. He was a full-blood Cherokee Indian. I think he was Blackfoot, right?
He was half.
He was half
Right.
blood.
Right.
But he showed me a picture. I never saw the wife, but I think she was. But so I'm learning. A lot I don't understand, but I do remember Big Mama looking just like an Indian because her hair was so smooth and pretty. She used to keep it in a ponytail like this. But I remember all the kids. I never heard none of them say anything about it. But if you notice, as we get older, the older kids remember more than the younger kids about our grandparents and our parents. What I remember about my grandmother, that Big Mama is, she reminded me of my mother because what my Big Mama used to do, Aunt Louise and Mama used to send us down there during the summer because Granddaddy would tell us, y'all send them kids down here, I'll take care of them. But we go and we would sleep and we wake up the next morning
Making
and
peas.
Big Mama would have a big full course breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Made
Yep.
bacon, eggs, sausages,
Rice.
Homemade biscuits.
homemade biscuit. How did you know that?
Get about some drumsticks.
We got some of that.
She used to have all the maple, Brother Rabbit served. She had all that ready for us. And then but the thing about it is she was fattening us up for the work. Cause granddaddy had my granddaddy had all types of he had farm. He had a farm. He had corn, peas, potatoes, onions,
Chickens and
watermelon, chicken,
Hogs and
hogs, cows.
Feed them all.
And he would have all of us he sent us down there, and what he would do is have us all pick the peas, all pick the corn, all that, and he give us a bushel. I'll send the kids home with some food, and he would make sure that we had plenty. And then my granddaddy, Joe Willie High, used to take his food up to the markets and he would sell it.
By weight.
And also he was a bus driver. Joe Willie High was a bus driver, and sometimes what I would do instead of going home, sometimes I would ride with him home. I catch a bus and ride home with him. But that's what he used to do in the daytime. Then he'd come back and he would take care of his farm. Now I don't remember very much about my grandfather's side of the family until one day I didn't realize that Pap, and I heard them talking about it one time, but Pap is actually the one that's our cousin, his daddy, right?
Your first cousin with
Granddaddy's brother, Pap's daddy and Granddaddy's daddy was brothers.
Tatum.
Pap Tatum,
No,
right?
wait.
No, you got it.
No, you got it a little bit wrong. That's
Which
what,
one?
Pap was your first cousin, right? What? Oh, he's not?
Pap, mother,
Okay.
and my dad was first cousin.
Okay.
Okay.
Pap's what now?
mother.
Mother.
Pap's mother.
Stay with what you know.
And okay, yeah, because me and Tree was talking about that one time. But
We
anyway,
get that
I
straight
found
right.
out, yeah, it was Pap's mother. But I didn't realize that Pap was any kin to us until me and him were talking one day because I was trying to move back down home. But anyway, that's what I remember about my grandfather. I remember a lot of other things because my grandfather I used to always love, out of all of them, I used to say, Mama, can I go down to Granddad? She said, I don't know. She said, you have to ask Granddaddy. I don't know if she used to call him or what, but he would always let me go. And I used to love to go down to my Big Mama and Granddad's house. And one thing I remember about one of my uncles, I just want to just say this. When I was a little boy, I used to love to go down there, and he used to be getting ready to go out sometime. Willie High. And when he would get ready to go, I said, I don't want to go with you, Uncle Willie. He said, no, boy, you can't go with me. You can't go with me. You're going to stay here at the house. He said, now come on, let's pray. We're going to teach you how to say your prayer. As you lay me down to sleep, pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die before I wake, pray the Lord my soul to keep.
Yeah.
And he would put me to sleep, and I would go in there and go to sleep. But I think I'd be asleep before he'd get through. But he would go out that night to Teague or whatever he go and anyway, he would make sure he was well protected when he went. But he went on out at night. But he would always, I would be there, and I used to love going down there during the summer. But I remember my grandmother used to have all of the children, and it was lots of us. And we would get out there and play. My grandma would just let us. Big Mama would just let us play. And Grandmama, so. And Grandma would say, child. Big Mama would say, yeah, I gotta remember.
Mama's mama.
Big Mama used to say, child, y'all ain't gonna worry me. Child, y'all ain't gonna worry me. Get on back out there and play.
That's what I'm saying.
Y'all cousins.
And we would get out there, and she never would come out there to try to figure out what we do, but sometimes she would come out and she would sit down with us and just kind of be out there so we wouldn't get into it with each other. But we would always play. We were all first cousins, my mama's sister, but we used to love to go down there during the summer. And and I used to enjoy going down there. And I used to always remember the family reunion. I used to always try to go down there for that time. And I remember when my other cousins come from Hereford. But also, I like to talk about my mother. I'm still staying on my mother's side. I have a lot of fond memories of my mother. And one, I don't know if I should tell the sad part.
Stay with the happy part.
No, I'm talking about my something that I did. But,
Oh, yeah, tell that part.
I remember right before my mother died, we had a little disagreement. But then I want to tell the good things that we had too. And I was very upset at my mama, and she was trying to tell me something, and I didn't want to listen.
Oh, yeah, that's normal.
And and come find out the next week, that same week, she died, and I was very hurt. And I remembered that I didn't listen to her, and I tell you that went with me for a long time. And when I was living in Fort Worth, I remember when I first became a Christian, I heard this voice. It said, Herbert, you need to give your life to God. You need to do what's right. You need to stop all this. I was out there in that world. And the voice that I heard speaking to me, the Lord was using that voice. And that was the voice of my mother. She was talking to me. And I know now what God was using that voice, because what I understand in the Bible, that the dead know not anything. And so my mother, God used the voice of my mother. But when I go back up with my mother and remember when I was a child, I remember one time when I was learning to drive. I had just started learning to drive right before she died. And I was coming around this curve coming from the brickyard. I don't know if nobody remember that curve.
Oh, yeah, that's the death curve.
And the curve said 20 miles per hour in the curve. So mama was letting me drive. So I came around the curve, and when I got ready to come around the curve, I didn't take the curve. I went on out in the ditch. Mama said, boy, won't you slow down? Didn't you see you were going? I said, well, the speed limit said 20. And I was trying to go around the curve. She said, well, if you can't go 20, then slow down.
Drive 10.
Drive 10, whatever. Just drive slower.
I was in the car when that happened.
But my mother, I remember the time that, one time when my mother, when I was in 8th grade, and some of the boys and we were graduating from the 8th grade, and we decided that we was going to go out and have a little fun. And the other boys were drinking, but I wasn't. And the only reason why I wasn't drinking was because of my mother. Because my mama had told me that day when I left there, Herbert, now this is your last, I don't forget exactly how the story went, but she told me not to get in no trouble, because this was my last day. And I went, and the other boys were drinking, but I didn't drink any that day. But I was trying to act like all the rest of the guys. And so when they got in trouble, we all got in trouble together. And the principal gave us a paddling that day and sent us out of the school, and we all went downtown. My mother said she saw me that day, and she knew that I had did something. She didn't know what it was. They had expelled us from school, and they were going to expel us. Basically, we wasn't going to get a chance to graduate. Well, later on that day, my Uncle Willie, my mama, and I'm not sure who else went, but they went down and talked to the principal. And after they finished talking to him, we were there. And they were not just defending me, they was defending all the boys. They brought in the boys who we told that were ones that gave us the liquor to drink. And the principal talked to us, and when my Uncle Willie got through talking to him, the principal said, well, okay then, we're gonna let them graduate to the 9th grade, but they're gonna be on probation through their whole high school year. And they never really said anything else about that my whole high school year. They never even brought that up. So,
Y'all football players, y'all were winning games.
But one thing I do, another incident I remember about my mother, when I was in the 8th grade, I remember one time a boy called me the N-word. They called me a little more than a black man. I won't say it. But I came home, I said, Mama, that white boy, he called me the N-word. You know, I said it out, but I don't want to say it because we're on camera. And my mama said to me, she said, well, are you? And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting her to defend me and ready to tell me what I need to go back and do, but she didn't do that. She said, what is that? Do you know what that means? I said, no, ma'am. She said, well, go get the dictionary. So I went and got the dictionary. Back in that time, it said that the person they called with the N-word was a person's attitude. He was his attitude. And so I came back, my mom said, now what did you find out? I said, well, I found out that it was a person with an attitude, that it could be anybody. She said, well, then are you? I said, no, ma'am. She said, well, don't worry about it then.
There you go.
So once she told me that, I went on. And my mama used to tell me other things. I remember one time she told me, she said, Herbert, no matter what they say to you, what they do to you, she said, they can't take what you have up here. She said, if you have knowledge up here, they may take your life, but they can't take what you have. She said, always use the knowledge that you have to do the things that you do. And another incident I remember, and to this day, I never really understood why she did this, and it was an emergency to her. She said, Herbert, come on in here. I'm gonna teach you how to cook. Come on in here. I said, Mom, I don't want to learn how to cook. Yes, you do. Come on in here. She used to show me how to cook, and she would cook things, and I would lick the bowls, you know, but she was showing me how to cook. She said why she did it. At least you'll be able to take care of yourself. And I don't know if the Lord was putting on her heart that I may not be married or whatever, but when she told me that, to this day, you know, I think all my brothers are able to cook. We didn't just wash dishes. We didn't just wash dishes, but we all able to
And I could
cook.
fry egg, okay?
And my mama used to take us out, and she tried to copy her father with cooking, but we never not cooking, but gardening, but we never got to that. But she would always teach us how to get out, and she would teach us how to plant and different things like that. But another thing that I remember I want to talk about now I got to my mother, I want to talk about my father. And I back up to my father, as far as I know back with my father. Our father. They told my dad. He said, I heard about what you said. I said, I'm going to talk to them. I said, our father. He said, I heard what you said.
He liked it though.
Well, he was like, you mad because y'all were talking about that. I said, what do you want me to call you?
It grew on
You
it.
want me to call you daddy? Or what I said, the Bible said, honor your father and your
It
mother.
also said, don't call no man your father.
Yeah, but he tell us to honor our father and our mother. So it's okay as long as you
You're good.
don't place them where God is.
It was good. You were good.
So the next thing I remember about is on my father's side. I remember, the furthest I remember back, and I can't remember if that was my grandmother's grandmother or not, but I think she lived in that house that we moved into in the country. And the one other thing I do remember is when we moved back to Teague, when I was a little bitty boy, and I you know, Earl talks about catching it. I can't remember when I first remember my mother and her presence. I tried to, while they were talking, I was trying to think about when I could remember my mother's presence. But I do remember my mother used to go wash clothes, and she would take all of us with her. Every one of us. And she would leave us there washing. It was the older ones. It was me, Eva, James, Patricia. And I think that was as far as I can remember back. And I think the rest of them, either they were babies or they wasn't born yet. But she used to take us there and she'd drop us off. She showed us how to wash, and she would let us wash clothes. She wouldn't come back until the time when the clothes all fold. We had all the clothes fold, and she didn't have to lord over us. And I can't remember getting a whooping from my mama, my mother. I don't, and even my father, I don't remember, but I know I did. They saying they don't. Oh, what you pinching me for?
Yeah,
That's all right.
I don't remember getting over because but I don't remember. I'm just saying.
Your brain is blocked out.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Traumatic event, but your
But
brain is
anyway,
blocked
back
out.
to my mother. I was just trying to finish the
Protective
things that I
mechanism.
remember about my mother. But she was always to me in the background. But I do remember some of my other brothers and sisters getting whooping.
Yes, you do.
I think I remember one time when she was giving me a whooping. But I remember, I do remember this. When she
it's coming
would
back to you.
Nah, it's coming
when
back.
she would whoop you, you would rather. She said, I'm
She
gonna
went 10
talk to
minutes between
you.
licks.
I'm gonna talk to you about this. It's gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt you. And what she would do, she would whoop.
Talk.
She would whoop you with a couple licks, pow, 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 pow,
Talk
then she
10
would
minutes.
talk. And you thought the whooping was over with.
She hit you again.
Then
while
all
you
at
nod
once she
off.
started whooping you again.
You nod off a little bit.
And then she would start all of a sudden again whooping you. And so I think I'm serious now. They were little. They don't know. They don't know because when these whoopings that I was getting, they was still babies.
I wasn't no baby.
They were still babies.
Back to it.
But I remember what I really remember was
Back to
that's
the
what
bees.
she did to them, and I was watching it. They were whooping like that. I said, man, it seemed like they would just know not to get these whoopings. But I remember, and I can't ever remember getting whooping by my mama or my father, my mother or my father for wetting in the bed. But I can remember when Ronald and Donald used to get
Stay on your now. Stay on your your stories. Yeah, your stories.
Okay, but anyway, we're gonna tell some of those later. But,
later.
but anyway, the thing that I remember about I remember about my father was, and I started with him, like I said, with his mother. I remember a lady that used to live in that house that we finally moved into.
Other mama.
Yeah, was that the other mama? That wasn't grandmama's
Stepmama.
mama?
That was grandmama's stepmama.
Okay, I thought that was her mother. In some kind of way.
Young mama.
We used to call her other mama.
They was living now.
She's black mama. Was it black
Other
mama?
mama.
Anyway, I remember
You
her.
talking about for daddy?
Yeah,
Okay.
other mama.
Other mama.
Okay, you remember. I was thinking about that while we were talking because I remember they said go back as far as you can. But you know what? That's one thing that we should pass the heritage on to our children because they need to know. They need to know. Oh, I messed up, man. Okay,
No, here it is right here.
you got it over there.
20.
23 minutes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, 15 seconds.
Yeah, you need to close it out.
Yeah, close it out.
Congratulations.
Let me talk
come
about.
back to
No,
you.
I gotta talk about my dad, my father.
Finish talking.
I remember when I was
You don't
little,
rush him.
and after I got older,
He's got the most.
when I was just a child, my father used to make us go in and make me go in and wash dishes all by myself. So he would have me wash dishes. He said, Herbert, make sure you wash them dishes, and you better wash them good. I said, okay, I'll go in there and wash. Get through. He said, if I come in and check him, you're gonna wash them all over again. I'll go in there and look and wash them. I think I got through. He said, wash them all over again. I said, man, I go in there and wash again. Wash them all over again. You didn't get them. Then about the third time, he didn't come back. I wash him, get down, and go and get into bed. But after I got older, I was always, everything I had to do was perfect. And I didn't understand why I was doing that. One day my sisters and them told me that. They told me, they said, you've always been that way. And I can remember one day I walked in my father's room. I think I was 16 years old, and I used to say, man, I walked in, I looked at his closet, all his clothes. Perfect. He had his suits and stuff in one place, work clothes in one place. Open up his drawer, all his shorts, clothes, socks, everywhere. I said, I'm gonna go back in and make my room look like this.
There you go.
I said, come on, James.
Shared it with Jay.
I said, James, come on, let's get our room together. We're gonna get our room together and we're gonna have this room looking just perfect. James look at me and he do just like he do now. He just smiled. I said, come on, James, that's your side of it. James wouldn't do it. I said, okay. this your side, this is my side. So I was straightening up my side, James' side, shoes all piled up. But I just couldn't get him to do that right. And I thought about my father. One time, me and James and Earl was out hauling hay. Earl didn't haul hay, but he was driving the truck. So we came to this barn, and when we came to this barn, the hay wasn't stacked right. My dad was so perfectionist on stuff like that he didn't have to do that. He said, we're gonna stack all this hay up there. So we got in there and we got to slang that hay around, and Dad said, y'all gonna make it? Y'all don't want the old man to get in there, do you? You don't want the old man to get in there, do you? And so we said, no, we didn't want him to outdo us. So me and James was in there, but he didn't let Earl get, because Earl had allergies and things. He couldn't get in there. And but anyway, y'all, that's why my story taking so long. Y'all interrupting. Okay, hold up. So anyway, later on, my father was telling me about that same story. And I said, boy, I used to think he was the meanest man in the world. I said, why he do us like that? He said to me later on, he said, you know what? When y'all was in there doing that, boy, that hurt my heart. He said, I didn't want to do that. He said, but I was trying to make y'all tough.
Yeah.
I want y'all to know how to deal with adversities. And I used to say, boy, that was a way to do it. But he taught us how to haul hay, and that was one thing. He taught us how to haul hay.
While everybody else was out on the town.
And you know what? I was 18 years old when I first went out, because my father and my mother, they said it, all of them said it, they were together on that, because my mother used to let us go out, my daddy didn't let us go out. We couldn't go out. We couldn't go nowhere. I think I was 18 years old when I first went out.
What?
Shit, 18.
You think really that
Yeah, I
bad,
was
man.
18. And I remember one time.
Herbert, you tell me one first. You
Check the kitchen.
It was before.
Herbert, you came to my window all the time, asked James.
Yeah, that was my senior year. See how they talking? I can't get to my story.
Let him tell his
No, I was,
30 minutes.
You went out all the
Let
time.
him tell his story, then you can come back.
Okay, you right here. Go
But-
ahead. We
Right
sorry.
here.
but that was my senior year.
Okay.
No, that was my senior year.
Okay.
Because before that, the reason why I know, because my mother wasn't living at that
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My mother wasn't living at that time.
yeah.
They told you to be home at a certain time too, right?
Yeah, but he told me, he said, you don't, and I had the truck, because he told me if I haul hay that year, that green truck, he said if I haul hay that year, that he would get that truck to me when I graduated. And I remember,
Tell the truck story when you came downtown with all the guys in the back.
oh, he didn't say nothing to me that day. Because there was a bunch of girls in there.
Oh, okay.
Boys was
It was some boys in there, but I had a bunch of girls
Right on
in
the
there.
trailer house.
And my father saw all those girls in there. He said, hey, Herb, stop. He stopped me and he got something out the car. I think he got his pistol out of there. He had a 32 snub nose. He said, hey, Herb, hey, let me he reached in there and got it and put it in there. And had a whole bunch of girls in there. He didn't say nothing about that.
But what did he say about the boys?
That's
Came
another
down
story.
there with the boys.
I don't remember that.
Of course you don't. Just take out the truck and made you walk back to school.
They telling my story.
I actually heard him tell that story.
Oh, yeah, this one.
Daddy told that
He
story.
told that story?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that let you know it ain't no lie.
You blocked it out. I know it was traumatic.
But I do remember my father told me, he said, Herbert, you need to start coming in at a certain time, what James would say. And I remember one of my friends told me that when I came in like that, I was so intoxicated, so
Very.
drunk, that I was beating James up. He said, man, I started to beat you up. I said, no, I didn't do all that. He said, yes, you did. My father told me, he said, you need to be here at a certain time. You don't get in here, I'm going to take them keys from you. My house key. I said, shoot, I'm coming, I'm grown. Come in when I get ready. I came in last night, give me them keys, boy. Give me the keys to that truck. So now I ain't got a truck to drive in. But you know, and I remember, and I'm gonna say this, like I said about my mother, that time when she died, and I was into it with her like that. I'm gonna tell these two stories, and I'm gonna wait for later. But I remember my mother when she died, I was into it with her. I cried, and I actually wasn't really crying. I was faking like I was crying because I was so hurt that she had told me something, and I did not do it. And when she had died, I was at work because we were working during the summer, And when I heard that I needed to come home, and I came home and found out my mother had passed, I was so hurt. And I went in the room, and I was pretending like I was crying, but I tried to make myself cry. But it wasn't until later that I really realized how much I missed my mother.
Yeah.
And I think about her all the time. And I always wonder, and some people always, one man had to fire me on the job because I kept forgetting things. And I always wondered what my life would be like if my mother was still alive. And I realized if she was still alive, she would be very proud of her children. Yeah. And I hear people sometimes, I feel like they being jealous, but they talk about my family. They say they think they're rich, think they're famous, and it's not anything that we are trying to do. We're the Joneses.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to be, I have a business card, and on my card I got the Joneses and Joneses Enterprise and Associates. And I do lawn care, and I do all types of business work, and the Lord has really been blessing. But I also remember one time when I was my senior year, I decided that I was going to move to Dallas. And by the way, it seemed like once I moved to Dallas, everybody followed me. And Eva came, then after that, Jane graduated, he came. So now Dallas has become our home. That's where we are all from now. I've been living in Fort Worth, Dallas County, Johnson County since I graduated from high school. But I remember when I got ready to leave, my father, we used to give him the blues. We did. We got to the point where we were very rebellious toward him. At least I know I was.
Yeah. Speak for you. Tell your stories.
Now, when I say we, I'm talking about some of the older ones. Y'all kids.
Me,
Yeah.
stay on yourself.
Earl, you just be quiet back there. Take a break.
I'm waiting for 35 minutes.
But y'all keep reminding me of time, but y'all breaking in on my time. I bet y'all done broke in 15 minutes.
I'm not serious.
Okay,
I'm not
be
serious.
quiet.
Keep
I'm
going.
talking.
Keep going. You're
Okay?
Be quiet.
good. Okay, be quiet.
Okay. Now, and so I remember my father said to me one time, I was getting ready to, my cousin Treva came to me. She said, Herbert, you want to come move me to Dallas? I said, yeah. And I was graduating that night. And I remember my Aunt Evelyn came from Houston. And she came to she came to go to our graduation. And I remember that night like it was yesterday. Because I said to myself, when I leave this house, it was my fault. I was a kid. And I thought my dad was being very mean. He took my truck and took my keys, and I started doing what I want to do, stay out as long as I want to, and knock on the window for Jane, let me in whenever I need to come in. And I thought that, that was the thing to do. I was grown. I feel like it. I wasn't but 18 years old. But I remember that night we came back from the graduation, and my father said to me, he said, Herbert, before you go in there, I want to talk to you. I said, oh, man. I already got my little suitcase packed, all my clothes ready. And he came to me that night. I don't know if I ever told anybody this story. I might have told you.
Not me.
And my father said to me, he said, Herbert, I want you to know that I love you. And when he said that to me, that broke me down like a double-barrel shotgun. Because I thought that he didn't love me, and I thought that he didn't care about me by the way he was treating me, and being a child, you don't see the discipline as being something that is for your good. And after that, almost every weekend I was coming home, driving, and then my father was the first one. He helped me get my first car. I remember it was a 66 Mustang.
It was a nice car.
And the Currys had the car, and they just rebuilt it, and they didn't want it. Man, I tell you, that car to this day, I don't know what Eddie Ray Branch did with my motor. But when I had a wreck in it, Eddie Ray had it. But that car lasted me. But that's some of the things that I want to conclude with that.
That's excellent.
Good story.
That's a great story. That's a great story.
So